Hi, fifth graders. My name is Miss Burnett, and I'm a fifth grade teacher at Amherst Elementary in Knox County. This lesson today is for fifth graders in specifically science. We are going to be doing lots of exciting things, and I'm so glad that you have joined me. So let's get started. So it's going to be really important that you have the handouts that have been provided to you that are going to go along with this lesson, and you can access those from two different places. The first one is on the Knox County Schools website under the Student Resources tab, and this is week 2, grade 5 science. You can also get a copy of these handouts at the meal distribution sites on Monday from 10 until 12. So if you don't have access to a printer or something like that at home, you can get your handouts at the meal distribution sites instead. Let's get started. So what are we going to do today? We first are going to be reviewing adaptations and variations because you are going to be investigating a species of finches today. And this is going to be important that you think about that background knowledge that your science teacher has already provided you with this school year. So, what are adaptations? An adaptation is going to be something that allows an animal to live and survive in a particular place in a particular way. We know that there are physical adaptations and there are also behavioral adaptations. So let's talk about a few adaptations that these animals on your screen have. The first animal is a fennec fox, and the fennec fox lives in the desert. It has some adaptations that are allowing it to survive in the desert, which we know is very hot and very dry. So the first thing is that the fennec fox has fur-covered feet. Why would this be important? Well, it is moving about on the sand, which is going to be very hot, and that fur keeps their feet protected. Next are those really large ears. Those serve a very important purpose besides just making it look cute, right? So those really large ears help the fox radiate the heat that it's absorbing from the desert. So that helps it stay cool when it may not be able to find any shade. Also, if you notice that its fur color is very similar to the color of sand, so it serves as a camouflage. It gives it that protective coloration that is going to allow to keep them safe in case they have a predator that maybe thinks that they look a little bit like lunch. Okay, next we have a camel, and the camels also live in the desert, and it has some different adaptations from the fox that help it survive. The first is that it has very large feet, and that helps it move around in the sand because it's such a large animal. It has to have those feet to help keep it being able to move quickly to get it to go wherever it needs to go. Next, they have very long eyelashes, and their nostrils are actually slits. So this is important because sometimes if there's like a windstorm in the desert and it gets really windy, that their eyelashes and their nostrils are actually able to close, and that keeps their eyes and their nose protected from sand that might blow in their face. Next is that famous hump, and some people think that that hump stores water, but that's actually a myth. The hump stores fat, and this is important because food and water is very scarce in the desert, and so they have to be able to store the fat that they can take in from eating food when they're able. So then when they may have a time when they're not able to get food, their body can break down the fat that's stored in that hump, and that's going to allow them to survive. Last is a flamingo. It's my favorite. And it has had to adapt over time because of climate change. So when we think about birds, we know that a lot of birds are going to migrate to a warmer climate in the wintertime when it gets cold so that they are able to survive. Well, flamingos already live in a warm climate, so why would they have to migrate? Because of climate change. So because of this, they now have to migrate with the rest of their colony to find a warmer location. That's a behavioral adaptation. So what about variations? A variation is going to be something that makes the individual animal different from the rest of its species. So we think about variations among humans can be the texture of our hair or even like the color of our eyes. Those are inherited traits that are different from the rest of the people around us. So if you think about the people in your classroom, how many different types of hair or eye color are there? So I want you to look at these individuals on your screen. These are all lemurs, and lemurs are primates. They live on Madagascar, which is an island. And because of Madagascar's highly seasonal climate, the lemur has had to evolve to produce hundreds of different species. So if you look just at this example, there's some things that I noticed that are different are their fur color. I noticed that their snout size and shape are different, and that even their ears appear to be different. I do notice, though, that they all have a very long tail, which is very important to their survival. So that would be something really neat to investigate the different types of species of lemurs and why they've had to change over these years that they have been on Madagascar. So I want you to think about these adaptations and variations in species that we've just talked about, and we're going to start to narrow it down back to our investigation. So like I said, you're going to be investigating different types of finches, and we know that a finch is a type of bird, and we have finches here in East Tennessee. This could be a bird that you could see outside at your house on a bird feeder or in the trees. So all birds have some sort of beak, and that beak is going to help them survive. If we look at these pictures that are on your screen, I want you to really pay attention to the different beaks that you see and think about what's different about the beaks and the birds that you see. Let's look at the first one together. So this is a falcon, and if you notice, the falcon has a curved beak. This is because falcons, their prey is going to be a mammal, and they want to be able to catch the mammal with their talons that you can see there in the photo also, but they actually have to use their beak to tear their prey so that they can eat it, which sounds gross, right? But it's very necessary. So that's why they have that curved beak. It allows them to be able to tear open their prey. Next, you have a pelican, and that pelican has a really large beak. Well, this is because pelicans are going to be fishing, and a lot of times they swoop down into the water, and that really large beak allows them to be able to catch fish. If you think if they had a really small beak, they're going to have a harder time fishing, right? So they have that really large beak so that they can swoop down and catch their fish. They also sometimes eat smaller mammals or turtles, and we know that if they had a really small beak, then they wouldn't be able to catch those things. Last, you have a hummingbird, and you can see that the hummingbird's beak is very long and very skinny and narrow. This is because hummingbirds drink the nectar from flowers. So think about that. If the hummingbird had a beak like the pelican, it would not be able to access the nectar from flowers. So that's why its beak is the way that it is. So thinking about that, thinking about the different beak sizes and shapes, we're going to get started with our investigation. So before you start investigating, I want you to read in your handout this part 1. So if you don't have your handout out yet, this is a great time to grab it. You're going to read this section either by yourself or to someone else in your house. This is just a review of variations and adaptations. So what I want you to do, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to read this just to yourself or to someone else. Okay. So now that you've read this and you have had some time to process that information, we're going to move on to our next step. So before we read through our steps for our investigation, I want you to make a prediction. This is really important in science, and hopefully you've been doing this lots all year long, that before we start any kind of investigation or activity, we're going to make a prediction about what we think is happening here. So your prediction today is, will the variations help or harm the finch's ability to survive? So like I said, you're talking about different species of these finches, and will this variation that you notice help them or harm them in their survival? So in a complete sentence, I want you to make your prediction on your paper so you can pause the video again. Okay, so now we have our background knowledge and we have our prediction, so let's move on with our investigation. These are your steps that you are going to follow to be able to complete your investigation. So if you read through these, the first one says that you've been provided with pictures of 4 species of finches that are found on the Galapagos Islands, which is in the Pacific Ocean. And scientists actually think that these finches, the 4 that you're going to see today, all came from the same species. Interesting. So I want you to look at those pictures. You're going to be thinking about the beaks, and you're going to take notes on the table that's provided. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's read through our other steps. The second thing you're going to do is make notes about the traits that you observe, and then also think about what would be an explanation that would help the bird survive and reproduce. So we know if they're not able to survive and reproduce, then they're going to become extinct eventually. The last step says that you're going to add some other notes to your table. In addition to the pictures that are provided for you, there are some notes about where each finch lives and what it eats. So you're going to want to add that to your table. So let's take a look at what your table looks like. This is a copy of your table. If you notice, there are 4 columns because, like I said, there are going to be 4 finches that you're going to be looking at. So you are going to want to write their names at the top of each column. Now, if this table is not large enough for you, you can always make your own, or you can add on to it if you run out of room. I know I have really big handwriting, so sometimes it's hard to write in a smaller space, so feel free to make your own table if you would like. Next, you see a chart, another table actually, that has the 4 finches. It has their pictures, their names, and then it also gives you details about where they live and what they eat, which, like I said, is going to be very important. So you're going to want to write the names of these 4 finches on your table, and then I want you to look at their pictures, specifically thinking about their beaks. And I want you to sketch that on your table, and then think about what would have caused these beaks to be different. So what kind of explanation can you give after you've read about where they live and what they eat? So how have those things affected what their beak size and shape is? So now's another great time for you to pause the video because this is your investigation. So take some time, go back through your steps, make sure you're following it correctly. And once you have your table completed, then you can press play again. Okay, so I hope you made some really great notes and you learned lots about the 4 species of finches. And now to wrap it up, you're going to make an inference. So on this last page in your packet, you see that you're going to answer the following question. It says, use your observations and notes to propose an explanation for how these variations might have occurred. So, like I said, in your notes, you should have made some explanations that you thought caused their beaks to change or be the way that they are. So now I want you to think about that and answer this one. So go ahead and pause and answer your inference question. Okay, 5th graders, it's been really great to spend the day with you. I hope that this has been a great review about adaptations and trait variations among species. I hope that you are staying well and washing your hands and still doing some great science things at home. I know that you are missing being at school with your friends, and I know that your teachers are missing you. I know I'm missing my 5th graders very much, and I hope that we're all back together soon. Bye!